Okay, so in this video tutorial, I'll be going to discuss on chapter number 4, quadratic equations. Now, मैंने already chapter number 1 and chapter number 6 start कर दिया था. मैंने already inform किया कि I had faced a technical issues. Okay, तो उसके लिए मैं continue नहीं कर सका. And since we are running out of time, okay, so मैं real numbers, triangles में फिर से वापस आऊँगा. Okay, so need not to worry on that. बट सिंस वी आर रनिंग आउट ऑफ टाइम ओके, मुझे क्वाड्रेटिक इक्वेशन भी कंप्लीट करना है. इट्स अ वेरी वास्ट चैप्टर एक्चुअली. ओके, सो मैं ये चैप्टर से स्टार्ट करता हूँ. ओके, धीरे धीरे प्रोसीड करूँगा. अरिथमेटिक प्रोग्रेशंस, ट्रिगोनोमेट्री, सम एप्लीकेशंस ऑफ ट्रिगोनोमेट्री, ऑल द इंपॉर्टेंट चैप्टर्स विल बी कवर्ड, सो नीड नॉट टू वरी ऑन दैट. सो आई विल बी स्टार्टिंग विद दिस चैप्टर क्वाड्रेटिक इक्वेशंस. ओके, तो चलिए देखते हैं ये क्वाड्रेटिक इक्वेशन में है क्या. Okay, now you see this quadratic equation. Now what is the meaning of quadratic equation first and foremost thing? Now in chapter number 2, okay, I think you have already done with the chapter polynomials, isn't it? Chapter polynomials. Now polynomials में हम लोग क्या पढ़ा था कि polynomials जो है, polynomials एक expressions होते हैं. Okay, any expressions, okay, जिसमें terms हो, okay, then variables हो. So these are polynomials. Now polynomials में हम लोग basically 3 types of polynomials पढ़े थे, if you have remembered. So we have learned linear polynomial, okay, linear polynomial. We have learned quadratic polynomial, and cubic polynomial. Okay, we have biquadratic polynomial, which is also called as 4th degree polynomial. Okay, then 5th degree polynomial, 6th degree polynomial. ऐसा होता है all polynomials. बट हम लोग का वो सब इंपॉर्टेंट है नहीं. जो फोकस में हम लोग का लीनियर इक्वेशंस इन 2 वेरिएबल्स, दैट इज चैप्टर नंबर 3. तो हम लोग को लीनियर पॉलिनोमियल्स पढ़ना है. क्वाड्रेटिक पॉलिनोमियल्स हम लोग का ये क्वाड्रेटिक इक्वेशन चैप्टर में पढ़ना है. क्यूबिक पॉलिनोमियल्स आर आल्सो सम पार्ट्स व्हिच आर कवर्ड इन लीनियर पॉलिनोमियल्स चैप्टर, दैट इज चैप्टर नंबर 2. ओके, नाउ हम लोग लीनियर और क्यूबिक को विल कीप असाइड एंड लेट्स फोकस इनटू व्हाट आर क्वाड्रेटिक पॉलिनोमियल्स. तो चलिए देखते हैं व्हाट आर क्वाड्रेटिक पॉलिनोमियल्स. नाउ यू सी what is the difference between expression and equation. I hope आप लोग को पता है, and in case if you don't know, so let's learn that first. Okay, what is the difference between an expression and equations? तो हम लोग का ये चैप्टर है quadratic equations, तो हम लोग को ये डिफरेंस जानना जरूरी है. What is the difference between an expression and equation? Suppose if I write 2x plus 1, मैंने लिख दिया 2x plus 1. And if I write 2x plus 1 equal to 0. Okay, now if you see in this case मैंने यहाँ में कुछ missing है. It's only 2x plus 1, but when you see the right hand side I've written 2x plus 1 equal to 0. Now क्या missing है यहाँ पे? यहाँ पे ये equal to sign नहीं है. It's not there. But in an equation we have got an equal to sign. मतलब हम लोग इसको इक्वेट कर सकते हैं. वी कैन सॉल्व इट, वी कैन फाइंड द वैल्यू ऑफ अननोन वेरिएबल्स फ्रॉम एन इक्वेशन. दैट इज द डिफरेंस बिटवीन एन एक्सप्रेशन एंड एन इक्वेशन. सो जस्ट याद रखना, कोई अगर एक्सप्रेशन आपको दिया जाए एंड इन दैट it does not have any equal to sign, meaning you cannot equate it. It's just an expression in terms of x, in terms of y, in terms of a, in terms of b, blah blah blah. But when I talk about equations, what is the meaning of equations? You can equate it, you can solve it, you can find the unknown terms from there. Okay, उसको कौन help करता है? The sign of equal to. ये equal to sign जो है ये help करता है इसको, है ना. So ये याद रखना, equations में 2 sides होते हैं. One is left hand side and the other is right hand side. Okay, we'll move into more detailed, okay, as we proceed. So I hope by now you are clear what is the difference between expression and an equation. Okay, now our जो main motive है, what is a quadratic equation? Quadratic है क्या? So quadratic is actually a 2-term word. Okay, quad means what? Quad means 2. Okay, quad मतलब क्या है? 2. 2 क्या? Is it a number? Is it a whole number? Is a natural number? और एक कोई terms हो? No, it's not like that. 2 here stands for power. 2 मतलब क्या है? Power. So any equation, just याद रखना, any equation in which the power, the highest power actually, the highest power of the variable is 2 is called as a quadratic equation. Okay, so what is the meaning of quadratic equation? Any equation in which the highest power of the variable is 2, it is called as what? Quadratic equation. ओके सो मैं एक बार डेफिनेशन लिख देता हूं. ओके, इक्वेशंस in which the highest power of the variable is 2. I will write here 2. It is called as quadratic equation. अब ये quadratic equation दिखता कैसा है? How does it looks like? Let's look into it. Okay? तो चलिए देखते हैं. So any quadratic equation can be generally represented as, देखो quadratic equation बहुत टाइप का होता है, isn't it? बहुत टाइप्स होता है उसमें, है ना, डिफरेंट टर्म्स, डिफरेंट वेरिएबल्स, बहुत कुछ यूज होते हैं. बट द थिंग इज एक जनरल फॉर्म वो फॉलो करेगा. Okay, which is called as general term. So any quadratic equation can be generally represented as ax squared plus bx plus c equal to 0. This equal to 0 plays a very important role because it determines whether it's an equation or an expression. Okay, now ये जो मैंने एक equation लिखा, I will call this equation as quadratic equation. What is the reason behind it? Because you see here x is the variable. x क्या है? ये variable है. And the highest power, यहाँ पे भी x है, you can see here. But the highest power of the variable is 2. That's why it's an example of quadratic equation. It's a general form of quadratic equation. Now if you see here, there are different terms I have written. I have written a, I have mentioned x, I have written b, I have written c. So this has got some terms. इसका कुछ names है. Okay, so what are these called as? You can see here, this a is called as coefficient of x square. Okay, this a is called as coefficient of x square. B is called as coefficient of x. Okay, coefficient of x. And c is called as constant. Okay, c is called as what? Constant. And x is called as x square ho, these are called as variables. These are called as variables. Okay, x square, x, these are called as variables. So once again, any quadratic equation can be generally represented as ax square plus bx plus c, where a is called as the coefficient of x square, b is called as the coefficient of x, यहाँ में x का coefficient है b, and c does not contain any variable. So any terms in the quadratic equation or any expression जहाँ में कुछ variables ना हो, that term is called as the constant. So in this case c is the constant. इसके साथ कोई variable नहीं है. Okay, so c is the constant, and this x, ये जो x है ये एक unknown term है. Okay, so this x is called as variables. Okay, so what have we learned till now? That what are quadratic equations? Any equations which has the highest power as 2, highest power of the variable as 2, are called as quadratic equation. And by now you have already learned what is the difference between expression and a quad equation, isn't it? Expression में कोई equal to sign नहीं होता है, it's just a term denote किया गया है. Okay, whereas if I present that expression with equal to, which will help me to equate it to find the unknown variables, okay, unknown terms, that will be called as, or that expressions will be called as an equation. Okay, so this is what we have learned in this introductory part. So if you're clear with this, let's now try to discuss with some examples, and let's identify that whether the given expressions or the equations are quadratic equations or not. Okay, तो मैं कुछ examples दूंगा अभी बोर्ड पे, and before I answer it, try to pause the video, okay, and try to answer it by yourself. Okay, so let's get started. So इसका ये टॉपिक का हम लोग नाम रखेंगे गेम. ओके, ये गेम है. ओके, सो आई विल गिव यू सम एक्सप्रेशंस, आई विल गिव यू सम इक्वेशंस, और आप लोग को आइडेंटिफाई करना है कि वेदर दिस गिवन इक्वेशंस आर क्वाड्रेटिक इक्वेशंस और नॉट. इट्स वेरी इजी. ओके, जस्ट तुम लोग को क्या याद रखना है, दैट व्हाट आर क्वाड्रेटिक इक्वेशंस, वेदर इट्स एन एक्सप्रेशन और एन इक्वेशन. हाईएस्ट डिग्री कितना होना चाहिए? 2 होना चाहिए. बस खत्म, यही है टॉपिक. ओके, सो लेट्स सी. सपोज मैं एक एग्जाम्पल देता हूँ. एक्स स्क्वायर्ड plus 2x plus 1 equal to 0. Now just pause the video and try to identify that whether it's a quadratic equation or not. Okay, I hope you have got the answer. Yes, it's a quadratic equation. Why so? Because if you see here, we have got the highest power of this x as 2. So yes, it's a quadratic equation. Let's discuss with another example. Say x square plus 2x plus 3x cube plus 1 equal to 0. Pause the video and try to answer that whether it's a quadratic equation or not. I hope you got the answer. So let's check it out. Okay. So you can see here x square, कोई student बोल देगा कि yes it's a quadratic equation because यहाँ में x square है. But if you look into this, it is also x. और इसका highest degree कितना है? 3. So in this equation, the highest degree of the variable, the highest power of the variable is 3. So it's not a quadratic equation. Okay. So those who have identified it's a quadratic equation, very good. A round of applause for you all. Okay. तो चलो next question देख लेते हैं. x squared, so 2x squared लिख लेते हैं. 2x squared plus x minus 2x squared plus 3 equal to 0. Okay. Please pause the video and try to answer whether this given equation is a quadratic equation or not. I hope you got the answer. Okay. 2x square. Yes, it's a, extremely sorry. Okay, it's not. Isn't it? It's not a quadratic equation. Why? Because if you see, I have got 2x square, fine. But here I got a negative 2x square. So this 2x square and this 2x square will get cancelled. So my expression will become x plus 3 equal to 0. And we can see here, this is an equation in which the highest degree of the variable is 1. So it's not a quadratic equation. So by now I hope you are clear with this topic of quadratic equation. Let's move on to some complicated example. थोड़ा complicated example के ऊपर discuss करते हैं. ठीक है? चलिए. Two x squared plus 3x plus 4 equal to 2x square plus 1. Okay? आप लोग आंसर करना है कि whether this is a quadratic equation or not. Let's see. Pause the video and please try to answer. I hope you got the answer. Now you see here, in left hand side we have got 2x square. Yes. So highest degree of the variable is 2. So I can say it's a quadratic equation. But if you see on the other hand side, on the right hand side, I have got another 2x square. Now when this 2x square will be shifted to the left hand side, what will happen? What will be the consequence? This plus 2x square will become negative 2x square, minus 2x square हो जाएगा. So ultimately this 2x square and 2x square will get cancelled. So in this case, it is not a quadratic equation. Why? Because वहाँ में x square तो है ही नहीं. If in equation there is no x square, then how come it's a quadratic equation? It's not. Okay, it's not a quadratic equation. और एक एग्जाम्पल देखते हैं. सपोज मैंने लिखा x square plus 1 equal to 0. Whether it's a quadratic equation or not? Yes, it's a quadratic equation. Why? Because the highest power is 2. Now you may ask me that sir, why? Where is the other term? Where is that x? वो यहाँ में exist कर रहा है कि नहीं कर रहा है? Isn't it? Some questions will be there जहाँ में तुम लोग को ये identify करना पड़ेगा that whether this x is existing in this equation or not. What is the coefficient of x square? What is the coefficient of x? What is the constant? So in this equation, let us try to find out what are the values of a, what are the values of b, what is c, what is x, what is x square. X square is already given to you, right? Okay. So my answer is yes. It's a quadratic equation. Okay. Now let's try to represent this quadratic equation in the form of ax square plus bx plus c. So let's try it out. So we know any quadratic equation can be represented in the general form ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. Okay. Now in this quadratic equation, you can see here we have got x square. Fine, we have got x square. But there is nothing with x square. Now if there is nothing with x square, meaning we have to assume that as 1. So I can write this expression as 1x squared. Okay, 1x squared plus constant. You can see the 1 is not associated with any variables, so ये automatically constant हो जाएगा. So I can write that 1 in place of c. Fine. Now where is that x? Whether it's existing in the equation or not. चलो देखते हैं. So we can write here x, but what will be the coefficient of x? That is our main question. Now if there is nothing, if the x does not exist, means what? The coefficient of x will be considered as 0. That is the most important point here. Okay, so you can see it's a quadratic equation. I've represented this quadratic equation in the form of ax square plus bx plus c, isn't it? And we have also found the value of its corresponding a, b and c, the coefficients and the constants. So here x square exists, but उसके साथ जो coefficient है वो क्या है? वो 1 है, because it's not given. If it's not given, मतलब वो 1 है. So the value of a is 1. Fine. Constant, no variable is associated with this one, so it will be a constant. तो मैंने c के जगह में ये 1 लिख दिया. And x यहाँ में exist नहीं कर रहा है. So meaning what? The coefficient of x is 0. So 0 into x will become 0 and we'll get back our equation. So yes, this is a quadratic equation. So as we proceed with our chapters, okay, as we proceed with our exercises, we have to come across this kind of equations जहाँ में तुमको a identify करना है, b identify करना है, c identify करना है. Okay, so उसको लेके हम लोग और एक गेम खेलेंगे. Okay, let's identify a, b and c. So by now I hope you are clear to identify what are quadratic equations and how this quadratic equation looks like. Okay, so let's start with our new game. Okay, in which we'll identify what are the values of a, b and c in our given equations. Let's start. So suppose let's start with our first example. 2x squared plus 3x plus 1 equals to 0. So हम लोग को first target किया है whether it's a quadratic equation or not. Yes, it's a quadratic equation because the highest power of the variable is 2. Fine. Now our second target is what are the values of a, b and c. It's very easy. Any terms associated with the variables are called coefficient. So we can see here x square is a coefficient, x square is a variable here. The highest degree of the variable is 2. It's a quadratic equation. So x are the variables. So this 2 which is associated with x square is termed as a. So the value of a is 2. Fine. Then any term which is associated with x, we call it as b. So the value of b is 3. And any terms which is not associated with any variables, it is called as constant. So constant is represented by c. So I can write here the values of a, b and c as 2, 3, 1 respectively. So it was a very simple question. Let's make it little bit complicated and little bit tougher. Tough तो नहीं है. If you have the basic idea, basic concept, then you can easily clear it. So let's give one term for you. 4x square minus 3x minus 2 equals to 0. So please do identify whether it's a quadratic equation or not and what are the values of a, b and c. So let's try to target it. So what is our first target? Whether it's a quadratic equation or not. Yes, it's a quadratic equation. Why? Because the highest power of the variable is 2. Correct? Quadratic equation. What is our second target? What are the values of a, b and c? So here you can see any terms associated with x square is called as a. So here the value of a is 4. Fine. What is the value of b? Now you can see here हम लोग का जो expression था ax square plus bx plus c. So plus into minus will become minus here. So in this case अगर कोई negative term है, I have to consider that negative term in place of a, b or c. Meaning, so to say, let's not make it complicated. So to say, you can see a negative sign is associated with b, right? So b का value will also be minus 3. b का value क्या हो जाएगा? Minus 3 हो जाएगा. It's not plus 3. Because plus into minus will automatically become minus. So the value of b will be minus 3. So याद रखना है, if there is any negative term associated with b, so you have to write it in place of a, b or c. So in this case, the term a has a positive value, so a is equal to 4. b has got a negative value, so b is equal to 3. Similarly, if we see a negative term is associated with it, isn't it? So the value of c is minus 2. Okay, so I hope till now you are clear what are quadratic equations, how to identify it and how to find the value of a, b and c. If you are clear till this, the chapter will become super easy for you. Okay.